Hi everyone, Kelsey here with the Marks Group Live. Today we are talking about security and users and control. This is an admin class, so just make sure that you are an admin in your Zoho CRM system and you'll be able to follow along with everything that we're doing today. Most of what we're going over has to do with users and their permissions in your system, so that includes things like the records that they have access to, and what they can do with those records. So just a little housekeeping to get us started. We'll spend about 45 to 60 minutes going over classwork, and then at the end we'll have an open chat discussion so that you can ask any questions. You can also ask questions all throughout the class if you need to. I will keep an eye on the chat window to make sure I don't miss anything. And then if I do, we can also go over those at the end of the class. If you're on a mobile device, there should be a chat window there as well. If you are any chance by logging in with Facebook and you don't see the chat window, just refresh your screen. There's a small bug with the hosting company. So if you don't see the chat window, just refresh and it should appear after that. What else? If you have any resolution or speed issues, there's a gear icon in the lower right corner of the screen. You can adjust your settings if you need to. We recommend keeping them on auto, but if you're ever having any issues with your internet speed, this is kind of the place to go to fix that up. And I think that's about it. We have class documentation if you need to, and then of course we always have our regular training calendar that you can go to if you have any ideas or whatever you want to look for on the training calendar and attend our other classes. So today, again, we're going over users and control. The highlights or takeaways of this class are being able to add a new user, manage existing users, which includes disabling or deactivating as well as deleting. And then we'll talk about user groups, security profiles, and then managing roles. And again, this all has to do with security and what permissions your individual users have in the system. So let's go ahead and get started. I'll share my screen. Okay, so again, this is an admin class, so most of what you're doing is going to take place on the back end. If you click in the upper right corner on the little tool icon, you'll get to your like your back end setup area, and then we're going to be working under users and controls. So first click on users and you will get a list of your existing users. Here's where you can manage your users as well as add new folks if you need to. So you can see we have 2 users listed on the left-hand side, and then as you click on them, their details will change on the right-hand side. So you see a little bit of a summary or preview window into that user's information. If you need to edit a user, and again, scroll down and you'll see all of their information. If you need to edit a user, just click on the pencil icon that's next to their name. A new window will open up where you can change their information. So if you want to add a phone number, we could do that here. And then this is also where you would change their role and their profile, and we'll get into more detail about what those specific things mean. So once I hit save, now I'll see that person's phone number there. Okay, let's go ahead and add a new user. So when you add a new user, a new window will open in another tab. This is where you're going to add their information. So the first thing you can do is you can enter their email address. Maybe they already exist in the system, but we are going to start with a new one and create a new user. So now at this point, this is where you can fill in their first and last name and make sure that their email address is correct. At this point, if you were to add them, you would send them a notification email. And in the notification email, it's kind of like an invitation, so they can accept the invitation, which means they accept access to your system. Okay, so I'm not going to add a user right now, so I'm just going to click cancel. But also when you do that, you would define their role. And a quick overview for roles. Roles just allow you to identify kind of a hierarchy in your system of who should be able to have access to which records. So at the top level, the CEO will have access to everyone's records below him. Let's see, the sales manager will be able to access their records and the salesperson's records, the person that's below them, but they won't be able to access the VP of sales who's above them or the CEO. So it just allows you to define a hierarchy and dictate which records should be available to that role or that person. And then the profile is, in summary, a mechanism where you decide which records they're allowed to, like which entities or modules, so account, contacts, leads, which modules they're allowed to access and what they're allowed to do within those records. So is it edit, is it just create, is it read, things like that. We'll go into more detail for both of those in a second. But once you add them, they will be sent a invitation email, and they have to accept the invitation. If you go to unconfirmed users, this is a separate view, you'll be able to see all of the people in your system that you've invited but have not confirmed or activated their account yet. So that just allows you to see who's accepted their invitation or not. If they don't accept their invitation within 7 days, the admin will have to resend the invitation at that point, and then only unconfirmed users can receive the invitation again. So once you confirm your invitation, you have to kind of manage your profile on your own. It can't be resent by your Zoho admin. So let's jump back to active users. Check on my chat window. Good. Okay, so from here, if you wanted to deactivate a user, you could do that by clicking on the button in the upper right corner once you select the user. Now you'll notice that that button does not exist for the admin because 1, they're the super admin, and 2, that's who I'm logged in right now, so I can't really deactivate myself if I'm logged in as myself. Okay, so I'll click the button to deactivate, and you see you get this warning. And it's telling you that once you deactivate this user, they'll no longer be able to access your Zoho CRM, but you can reactivate them at a later date if you want to. Also, good thing to keep in mind is if you deactivate the user, this will not reduce the number of licenses that your company has and is billed for. So if you want to manage your licenses, you need to go to the subscription area. Just a couple overview items of what happens when you deactivate a user. The user will no longer be able to access your Zoho CRM account or their Zoho CRM account. No one will be able to log in with that deactivated ID. So, even if someone else has that username and password, they won't be able to use it either. You are free to use that same license on a different user. So if you have a person that left your company and you need to deactivate them, you can do that and then use their license to apply to a new user or maybe the person that has filled their position. The user license is not canceled, so you'll still be billed for the same amount of licenses. If you want to manage that, you have to go to the subscription area. And then let's see, your user will be listed under deactivated users under this view, inactive users. And you can always reactivate a deactivated user, and what happens is you can just re-invite them once they're inactive. If you're not sure if the user is ever going to come back, I would just deactivate them. I think deactivating is better than deleting. unless you have a whole bunch of inactive users that it's like cluttering up your system and it's really bothering you, I would suggest just deactivating folks instead of deleting them. Now, if you want to delete a user, that's separate and different. So select the user that you want to delete and then scroll down to the bottom and you'll see this button called Delete This User. Again, we get a warning because this is a big deal. Once you delete this person, you can't undo it, whereas if you deactivate someone, you can always reactivate them. So if we delete them, they're going to be gone immediately. And again, it warns you that just by deleting them, this does not reduce the number of user licenses. So again, you have to go to the subscription area to manage your licenses and your billing. So just a general overview of what happens when you delete a user. Again, you cannot undo the action. So if you don't want the member to access CRM, but you're not sure about deleting the user, you should simply deactivate them, not delete. The records that belong to the deleted user will remain in Zoho CRM. So just because you delete the user doesn't mean all of their records leave as well. You can transfer their records to another existing user. Before you delete the user, you could do it after as well, but it's recommended that you do it beforehand. And you can do that either one by one, like select the person and then change the owner, or you could do a mass transfer. And select many and then reassign them to whoever. Okay, let's go back to our admin area. And then once you delete a user, you cannot re-invite them, so you have to kind of start over if you need to, re-invite that user. Yep, so it's kind of just like starting over. If you delete them and then you need them to come back for some reason, you have to create a brand new account. They'll be re-invited. You know, it's the same process as adding a new user once you delete someone. Only super admins can delete a user. So I'm logged in as a super admin, which means I can delete other users. And then again, deleting a user does not cancel the user's license. To cancel the user's license, you have to manage your subscriptions. Okay. We already talked about editing their account. So again, that's with this little pencil icon. Let's jump to user groups. So you see that in the tab up here if I click on groups. So groups allow you to share records amongst a set of users. So for example, here we have a few different groups: sales, marketing, service. If we click on marketing, we can see that these are these. So let me back up. Groups allow you to share records amongst a set of users. So in this case, the users that are associated with the marketing group are both of our admin and our general user, and then we also have the VP of marketing and the marketing manager. For this group, those are the people that will, and users, I should say, that should be able to share the records and work with other records in the system. So let me go here. I'll add a new group. We already have sales, marketing, service. I'll do product management. And then at this point, you can specify what type of source you'd like. So do you want users, roles and their subordinates, or groups? And you can do a combination of any. So let's say for our users, we want our admin to be involved in this. And then for roles, we need service and CEO. sales and marketing aren't really relevant to product management. We basically just want service and our admins. So now we have a mix of one user and two roles. So anybody that fits, that has this role, VP of Service or CEO, will be included in this group. And then once you have your group, you can do a data sharing rule. So I think that's under security. Let me jump to that. Yep. Okay, so once you have your group set up, go to data sharing settings, and this is where you can specify your rules. So here we have a rule that is going to, let's jump down to case. We'll do product. Since we were working with product management, we'll do it under product. So a new sharing rule, and this allows records shared from group product management to be shared with everybody else in group product management. So if I'm in this group and I am working on a product or some other record type that we specify, that means that record is going to be shared with everybody else in the group. So in our case, I'm the admin. Any product that I create is also going to be shared with the CEO user role and the VP of Service user role. And then you can specify what type of access. So do we just want them to be able to read, or do we want to be able to read and write and delete? I'm going to say read only, and that's it. I don't need superiors because I'm already including the CEO and the VP of Service. So those are the two superiors that would even be, involved in this anyway. So I'll create the sharing rule. And then if we jump down to our products, now we have that. And you can do, whatever you need. Maybe you want to share products, anything created by the product management team you want to share with the service team, because products and service are sometimes intertwined. Or it could be sales. Sales is going to be selling these products, so they also need to be involved. And then you can go by entity. So it's just products that we want to share, or is it just cases? In this case, you see everybody that is in the service group is sharing all of their cases with everyone else in the service group. So that's an overview of what you can do with groups. And users can be part of several groups. So let me jump back to groups. So like in our case, we had the admin user, the account I'm signed in with, was part of the product management group. If I go to service, I can see they're also part of the service group. So as a user, you can be associated with many different groups. Okay, so next let's talk about security profiles. Jump to security and control, and then we'll land on our profiles page. So profiles allow you to manage access to specific modules like accounts, contacts, activities, and then also some of your customization or setup operations, things that are more usually reserved for admins. So I will start by creating a new profile. We can give it a name. Let's say we'll do sales manager. And we're going to clone the salesperson role. Create. So sales manager, you'd think would have more permissions than the sales person, right? Okay, so it starts off by, we start with our module permissions, and then the next group is setup permissions, and finally extension permissions. So in module permissions, you'll see a list of every module in your system. Scroll, 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 and then next to that, you'll see the different permissions that are available for that module. And you can click on the drop down and then add or remove any checkboxes as you need to. So in our case, the sales manager looks like they already have a lot of permissions. So if I wanted to change anything, I could. I'm trying to look for something that I might want to change. Seems like I'd want to change the salesperson to have less permissions, which would mean the sales manager has more. But in this case, I'm just going to keep it like this. Let's see. We'll let them have access to the case module, but only to view them. So they can see what cases are going on right now, but they can't do anything with them. They can't create new ones, they can't edit existing ones, and they certainly can't delete anything. And then let's see. All right, that's it really. That's all I'm going to do. What I would normally do if I was making a sales manager role is I'd give them pretty much all of these permissions, and then I'd go to the salesperson role and I'd scale back some of their permissions. So I don't want them to be able to delete anything, or I don't want them to be able to create new accounts. That should be reserved for an account manager, things like that. So let's jump down to our next section, which is import and export permissions. This allows you to specify which records they're allowed to import. So in this case, they're a sales manager. They really shouldn't be doing anything with campaigns or events or solutions or price books or jobs. Vendors they can keep. Everything else is fine. Export, same thing goes. What should they be allowed to export? Now, for some people, you might not want to allow them to export anything, so then you just uncheck all of these items. For this guy, for a sales manager, we're okay with him being able to export most things in the system, so I might get rid of campaigns because he's not really going to ever be using those. Everything else should stay with this person. Okay. Send email permissions. So this allows the person to be able to send emails, and then it specifies which records they can send emails to. That includes just individual emails, mass emails, mail merging, and deleting. Okay. Next we have tool permissions. Here is things like mass update, like we went over. If you want to change the owner, that means reassigning a record. Mass transfer is reassigning in bulk. And you can specify, again, which record types or modules should they be able to do these functions on. Other permissions, just a little bit of random stuff like being able to print, create a sheet view, which is kind of like an Excel document, find and merge, custom views, voice, and then tags. Okay, so next we are on setup permissions. So this is more like admin level items. Not everybody in your system needs or wants to be able to do any of this. So if you want them to be able to manage users, compliance, customization. So for customization, if you want them to be able to add or delete fields or update the layout of specific forms, this would be the box to check. And then we have some portal management items. Moving down, we have email and templates, automation, things like assigning, case escalation rules. And then we move into web forms and data in administration. Again, these are things that not every user is going to want to do or even be able to do. So this area would really be reserved for someone who's going to be like an admin or a higher level user in your system. And then next we are in our extension permission area. So this gets into the different products that integrate with Zoho CRM. Some of them happen to be Zoho products like Zoho projects, visits, the phone bridge, things like that. Then you can also sync with Google, which includes contacts and calendars. These are things that you would want to enable for an average user, including like Word or Outlook plugins, mobile access, things like that. So that is how you set up a user profile. If we go back to our profiles list, now we have our sales manager. If we wanted to jump into salesperson and modify them, I'd probably start by, removing some of their delete permissions. We do have a recycling bin in Zoho CRM, which is nice. Some CRM systems do not have that, so that is a handy feature. But again, if you don't want someone to be able to delete something, then it's best to just remove that permission, and then you don't have any sort of concern about who deleted something. If it's gone, it's, you don't have to worry about that. Okay, so that is security profiles, and then the last thing we're going to go over is roles. And roles, as I mentioned in the beginning, it allows you to define how you share your records and your data among users based on your role hierarchy. So groups allow you to define how you share data among users based on, specific roles or users, whereas this is based on an organization hierarchy. So you would give the person the role when you set up their account, and then they would fall into one of these categories. So sales manager can access their records as well as anybody below them, so anybody with the salesperson role, but they cannot access the records of folks above them unless they're specifically shared with them. So at this, if we had the sales manager role, we would not be able to access the VP of sales or the CEO or anyone else, really. We could only access sales manager and salesperson. And then if we needed to access the people above us, we'd have to work through either a group or that person above them, CEO or VP of sales, could individually share records with that user. So that's how the hierarchy works. If you go to an account record, open it, you can share it right from here. So here you can share it with, I can share it with the general user, give them full access, read write or read only, and then that's it. And then if you check this with related list box, this allows them to also, it means you share all of their related list records as well. That would mean things like, if we're on an account, that would mean things like opportunity, activities, contacts, stuff like that. So I'm going to click cancel. That's another way you can share records if you don't have access to something that you need. Okay, so I think that is everything that we were going to go over today. Just a little recap. We went over users, how to manage existing users and invite new users. That's all done within the users and control area. Here you can add a new user, edit a user with the pencil icon, or not this one, or deactivate and delete a user, also in this user area. The next thing we talked about was groups, and groups allow you to share records amongst a specific set of users or user roles. It can be a combination of both, and that is dictated by data sharing rules. And then let's see, security and control. Under that heading, that's where we talked about profiles. Profiles allow you to determine a set of permissions that dictate which modules the user has access to and what they can do with those records in those modules. So create, edit, delete, things like that. And then finally we had roles, which allow you to define how you share data among your users based on the organization hierarchy. Okay, so that's everything for today. I'm going to keep the chat window open in case you have any questions. I'll make sure I monitor it and come back with any questions that you might have, and we'll go over them as a group. And then if you have any questions that don't make it to the chat window, you can always email us at support@marksgrouplive.com. It's on the screen right now, so you can jot that down if you need to. And then make sure you check out our calendar for upcoming classes. I will be here and I'll monitor the chat window, so let me know if you have any questions.